Apart from what we know about the process of canonization and how the church names people or recognizes people as saints, what's most important to know about the process is that it is not something that is beyond our reach. Right? It is something that is achievable by every human being, precisely because it's not an achievement of our own. It is God fundamentally who makes saints. It is God's grace building on our human nature and on our human choices that fully brings us into holiness. And that's a fundamentally important thing to remember, that it is that even when the church declares somebody a saint, it is not an award or an honor that it is bestowing on somebody. It is recognizing something that God has already done. I think the temptation is always to think that the path to our holiness and to our saintliness lies in our doings, as if it has something to do with what we do or don't do. And of course, the choices that we make and the things we do and don't do are important. But in the end, the path to sainthood really lies in the surrender of our hearts, of our very being, to to the Creator, to the one who is truth, right? And to live in that truth, right? As a human being, fully realized. I mean, God's desire for every one of us is to be a saint, is to grow in holiness and to live the life and love that He has envisioned for every human heart. And in the end, we are tempted to think that that's something that we can achieve on our own. We can, of course, more or less dispose ourselves toward it, or open our hearts more or less, or cooperate with the grace. But more often than not, it's a question of getting out of the way of what God already wants to do in our hearts, and of simplifying our lives, not just materially, but spiritually, in order to create a space in which God can do what God wants to do. I think fundamentally, God's plan for all of us is the same, which is that we live a life in love for eternity. That's the way in which we are created in the image and likeness of God. That image and likeness of God is fully realized by living a life in love as God does in God's Trinity. And the temptation, I think, is always to be looking for the plan or the project that is going to lead to my own holiness, when in fact we ought to be less focused, I think, on God's plan, which He's already revealed to us, and more focused on what is the purpose of life and what is the meaning of it. We have to remember that the canonized saints, the saints that the church has fully recognized, and said God has revealed that this person is in heaven, that is a much smaller number than the actual number of saints throughout history, which means that probably the contributions of lay folks have not come to the attention of the church in the dramatic way in which they have for others. And I think the nice thing about the world in which we're living now, and John Paul II set this in motion, is that the church is in a very deliberate way turning its gaze more and more to the holiness of everyday life, and particularly the role that family plays in cultivating that holiness. It's an utterly indispensable part of who we are, and even for those of us who don't have families, we come from families, and we minister within families. It's indispensable. I mean, the family is our first church. Well, I would say that the life of a saint is the most public life that you can live. I mean, certainly in its fullest expression as a person residing in the heavenly communion I mean, that is the most public existence that there is. In our faith, the path to holiness is never simply in my own personal relationship with God, though that is indispensable. It's always a relationship that's lived out in the context of a community, of family, and of the church, and of the socio-political world in which I live. And in the end, while rules help us to navigate those relationships, what is fundamental is the relationship itself, and attending to that, so that we haven't just, the path to holiness doesn't reside in simply knowing and following the rules. It actually resides in surrendering in relationship to the one who is ultimately the origin and destination of who we are.